The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawake in your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say I'm reawakening minds. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say I'm reawakening minds.
Happy Holy Day, Moors, and welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for the exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, an awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, I am pleased to present to you our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey, as he presents Corruption of Blood, a North Gate issue. But before he begins, please be sure to like, share, and if you have not already done so, subscribe to our channel. Now, let's receive Grand Sheik Taj Tarik Bey.
Islam, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Vadimakum. We're going to discuss a little bit about corruption of blood, and it's important for our people to be aware of much of the work that has gone into the hybrid Europeans' hegemony operations at North America under Unum Sanctums, that they have been encouraged to falsely and wrongly and incorrectly refer to as racism and prejudice problems and color skin problems. All of those dynamics and social engineering paradigms are in fact diversions, incorrect, non-constructive, deceptive, and birthright stealing in their nature. Now I want you all to write these words down so that after we have some of this conversation, that you can do a little research on your own to improve your concepts in relationship to the social engineering that has taken place in North America and has been exported around the world, etc., and be more competent with yourself in relationship to the honors of your mothers and your fathers, your ancient mothers and fathers, and the principles of the common law derived from the ancient customs and traditions of your ancient mothers and fathers that ties you to heritability. And so corruption of blood, I want you to look up these words: heritability, hereditaments, attainder, and also geography and land. Now, many of these words, most of you are aware of the true meanings of many of these words and phrases that have been used, not necessarily in the general public arena, of the rulers and the corruptors not wanting the common or the average people to be aware of their corruption, their trickery, their misrepresentations, and their general established frauds in all of the institutions. It's unfortunate, but you have to recognize that all of the institutions of government, for the most part, are corrupt from the top to the bottom. It may be difficult for many of our people to accept that, but that is indeed the truth. The other issue is, don't get caught up in the paradigm of comparing gods and fighting gods, upper gods and lower gods game. Because all of your major religions have been contaminated by the P2 Masons of the Vatican of Rome, etc. And at the same time, don't get confused with the fact or the reality that Masonry itself as a study and Freemasons as an organized body are two different issues. No different than people who have been doing most of the evils on the planet have been using Jesus as a front. You don't blame Jesus or the fact that it is implying justice and that Jesus implies the sun in the sky of the creator and the creative forces, and also of light and love and the demonstrations of a moral and ethical being, period. Don't confuse that with the fact that people bandy that name around and claim to have power. The history and the fact has been proven and shown and demonstrated that most of the people who have been the greatest beneficiaries, both economically, politically, and socially, bandying about Jesus, 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 have been some of the most corrupt people that the world and the planet has ever known. However, that is not to condemn those who are in honor and in goodwill and good intent have made their associations with Jesus or the principles of Jesus as presented to the people, even though it's for the most part been presented in an anthropomorphic format. Nevertheless, the goodwill and the honor and the good intent of the people takes them from the darkness into the light nevertheless. And source or Allah in nature, divine or divinity, recognizes sincerity and honor in people no matter from what walk of life they come. And our ultimate goal and our ultimate intent with our relationships with each other is to do good, to be better to each other and to ourselves, and to remove from humanity the lechery and the parasitic nature of the dark side of the people who have been ruling this planet for quite some time, to the negative of both the planet and of the peoples of the planet. Now, corruption of blood in its nature, I'll give you a short in law and then we'll do an extension, but I want you to pay attention to the abbreviated presentment in ancient and modern jurisprudence. And as you know, jurisprudence means the science that treats of positive law. And when you're dealing with the fundamental principles of jurisprudence that has been promoted for the most part around the world, is based in ancient Coptic or ancient Sabian Moorish law, and that is true. And they'll just say Coptic or ancient Egypt to cover it up, etc. Now, when you're talking about the styling of the Constitution for the operations of government at North America as an example, you'll find that many people who know the metaphysical origin and nature of the Constitution for the United States of North America know that it did not originate with Madison, George Washington, or John Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, or Thomas Barclay, who was agent in business when they were adopting from the Aboriginal Honestly Confederation of Moors at North America, who they traditionally write in history as Indians, which you already know is a diversion in itself. That those principles are ancient principles that underpin the nature of the Constitution for the United States, etc. So don't look at it as originating with the hybrid Europeans. Look at it from a realistic point of view of them adopting the principles of that Constitution for governance, etc., in the intent or in the promise of honor and integrity in governing. However, history has shown, and the record has shown, and the experience has shown that those who have been governing not only have deceived the people from the beginning, and also had no intentions of maintaining the honor and the integrity of that contractual constitution or its principles. Because keep in mind this, that the principles underpinning that constitution belong to the people by nature, having nothing to do with the written instrument itself. That must be clear, so that you don't think that that constitution itself in its written form gives you or secures any of your rights. Those rights unalienable belong to you divinely, and the sovereignty that goes with it belongs to you from divinity in nature herself, having nothing to do with any written instrument, for you yourself are the law and master of your fate. And so when you hear us say Islam, I, self, law, and master, that's what that means on a metaphysical level, and not necessarily what most people assume from a ritualistic, dogmatic, or creed position, but from a position of recognizing the divinity in all living things and in nature herself, and our obligations to each other and to all living things and living forms upon which original religious principles are founded, etc. Having no recognition of secularism whatsoever. Keep that in mind. So corruption of blood in its nature of law is the attainder activities that has been commonly practiced at the North Gate. And keep in mind, geographically, North America is known cosmologically and according to the ancient ones as the North Gate. And you're dealing with the four gates of the earth. So you got the North Gate, the South Gate, East Gate, and West Gate. And so you're dealing with the geography of Midgard, this particular planet or firmament, based on its cosmological relationship with the stars. Now that's true. And this is why when you go into all of the ancient culture, you will see that all of the layouts of civilization are based on metrology, which is a mathematical connection of this firmament that we call Earth here, Midgard, in relationship to the constellations, in their relationship to the direct and angular connection or views from the position of Midgard, Earth, etc. And so cities have been laid out by those principles. Customs and culture has been laid out or adopted from those principles, and that is the foundation of the religions, etc. And this is why you will see the sun, the moon, and the stars used as signs in all of the original religions, not to be confused with the corruption that has taken place by the priesthood since the founding of religion. And so religion, as it is in its corrupted form, would be known as dogmata. No different than the priesthood has deceived the whole world and removed the cosmological alchemical metals, which are the money, and have introduced it as a substitute their private commercial papers, commonly known as Federal Reserve notes, upon which they have used to enslave humanity, aside from the dogmata, etc. So when you're looking at or really examining the political platforms that you're forced to deal with, and I repeat, forced to deal with, because you haven't consented to any of this crap, etc. The organized government body are actually, at North America, board of trustees. So the people that you have been calling, the presidents, praetors, etc., and the congressmen and the senators, men and women, have all actually been operating as trustees or board of directors and FOFers for the crown, which would include all of the Pharisees and Sadducees, which you know as the attorneys, the esquires, and lawyers, etc., which are in fact known as the crown, who have been organizationally running all of the judicial systems in what is known politically as the Western government systems, etc. And so in general, if you're referring to United States Corporation Company that has been occupying North America, Canada, Germany, etc., these would be referred to as Western nations. And we're not talking about the geography, in fact, of the organic land, but a political nomenclature used to demonstrate or to indicate operations in their political jurisdictions, both civil order jurisdictions and political constructions of nation states and the corporate nation states, known as the Occidental stock of the human race, etc., usually referred to as loosely Europeans, and more specifically hybrid Europeans, and falsely referred to since 1854 as quote-unquote white people. That is not a condemnation of the hybrid stock. It's just to let you know the politics that you're operating under, willingly or unwillingly, that has corrupted the whole planet, i.e. has become a severe problem of the North Gate, and particularly to the Aboriginal Canaanite Moabite peoples of Asiatic African origin, etc., here at Northwest Africa, known as the North Gate, commonly referred to Al-Marak or America, Amir, etc., etc., etc. Now keep in mind, the last lawful name or attribute used to apply to all the Asiatic African people or the Aboriginal peoples, i.e. of the world, of the planet, is Al-Moroccan, in short known as Moors, etc. That's a fact. And you will see in the ancient, before the transfer or before the descendancy attributes have been used, were generally referred to as Moabite, etc. And so when you see in the Septuaginta and in the ancient Coptic texts, or any text that make reference to Yeshua, and you'll see Yeshua translated, and it's not a transliteration either. You'll see them refer to Yeshua as Jesus, etc. And so Jesus was Moabite. He had hair like lamb's wool, skin like burnished brass, like copper, as if burned in an oven. And you'll see the books refer to his grandmother, Ruth the Moabitess. And so in short, in the descendants of the ancient Moabites are referred to as Moors. They are the people of Asiatic African descent who have hair like lamb's wool in general, although they come in many what they call coats of many complexions, etc. They are the direct descendants of the ancient Moabites and are the founders of the first civilizations on the planet Earth, etc. And the capital dominion is known as Hikupta, and Hikupta is known in the modern terms as Egypt, etc. And so this is why when you go into much of the social intercourse that you'll find in the earlier records in the mid 1800s and back, you'll hear them reference the mid territories of North America as Little Egypt, etc. And you'll find it in many political statements, etc. And so you have Upper and Lower Egypt, and the concept that people have when it's taught, the history of geography is taught to the people by the hybrid Reconstruction Europeans. They're thinking only on the east side of the planet of ancient Amexem, modernly referred to as Africa, and they're thinking of Nubia and Sudan, etc., Eritrea, etc., and Hikupta, what you call Egypt, and they're looking at the top and the bottom of what they refer to as the Nile, etc., when they make reference to lower and upper and lower Egypt. But in reality, upper and lower Egypt includes that side of the water, even into North, Central, South America on this side of the water of the Great Atlantis, which used to be a great river. And of course, those of you who know some of the history of Midgard know of what is known as the continental drift, and or the cocoa plate shift, etc., which expanded and caused what you would call the Great Atlantic Ocean. And know that the people of ancient Canaanite Moabite descent on both sides of the water are of the same blood and are the same people of different tribes. Keep that in mind. Now, the corruption of blood has much to do with the conquest of the Asiatic African peoples under the unum sanctum operations of the popes of Rome, even up into what they call the Spanish Inquisition. And in your modern histories, when they make references to Spanish or Spain, etc., keep in mind that is a contemporary term in the history of man, having nothing to do with the peoples or language, but has to do with the cover-up of Moorish history. And this is where some of the hybrid Europeans in their wars with the Moors named Al-Andalusia, that you know today as Spain in Europe, which is actually a part of the northern coast of the African empires, etc., and claiming it as being separate, and refer to it after Ferdinand and Isabella did their nuptials. They refer to that area as Spain. Know that that is Al-Andalus, and also know that in the history and in the nature of Asiatic African culture, that the feminine and the masculine principle in nature is acknowledged even in the language. So you will see Al-Andalus and Al-Andalusia, which still is Al-Andalus, etc. And so when you see Al-Andalusia and Al-Andalus, you're still referencing the geographical area of the what you call Iberian Peninsula area that you know as Spain, Portugal, etc. And Portugal is actually the port of the Gauls, which is actually an African tribe. So keep in mind the hybrid concept that the people have of Portugal being one of what they refer to of the linguistic groups, of the Latin linguistic groups of hybrid Europeans. No, that land is Port of Gauls. So the Port of Gauls, the Gauls are Central African tribes that come up, etc. So is France, etc., and the linguistic group. Now that's the reality and part of the truths of the human, or the walks of man, that's not taught to the people. However, that knowledge is preserved among many of your secret societies, and this is why Masonry has been corrupted by the Freemasons, i.e., which are generally hybrid Europeans who are descended from the conquest operations, including the Knights Templars, etc., in their wars with the ancient Canaanites, Moabites. They'll refer to us as Carthaginians. They'll also refer to us as Saracens, etc. So don't get it twisted. While they've used different attributes over the years, much of it is done only to hide you from the real illustrious history, and also from the reality that they have put an attainder, i.e., upon the true heirs of the land, or the aboriginals of the land, and thus the corruption of blood. Now, so in law and jurisprudence, the corruption of blood would read like this. Corruption of blood. In English law, the consequence of attainder. So write that down, attainder, A-T-T-A-I-N-D-E-R. It's very important for you to have this concept. Being that of an attainted person could neither inherit lands or other hereditaments. Write down hereditaments. That's H-E-R-E Ditament. Repeat.
The definition I know.
Hereditaments. Now, hereditamus deals with all inheritance, both corporal and non or incorporeal. All right, so you're dealing with both the customs, the traditions, and then you're dealing with the physicalities, whether you're dealing with lands, furniture, artifacts, etc. And because of the corruption of blood, this is why you see the hybrid Europeans have always practiced digging up all the graves of all the Asiatic African people and claiming the artifacts to be their own and putting them on display in museums and generating finance from them, etc. And then disconnecting the real people from the truth of the dynasties or the ancient dynasties at Midgard, etc. That act itself is a corruption of blood, etc. So, I'll read the limited paragraph and then we'll discuss it a little bit. In English law, the corruption of blood in English law refers to the consequence of attainder being that of an attainted person who could neither inherit lands or other hereditaments from his ancestors, nor retain those he already had, nor transmit them by descent to any heir, because his blood was considered in law to be corrupted. And then it will give you law cases for reference. As an example, Avery versus Everett. That's 110 New York 317 18 NE 1481 LRA 264. All right. Now another one would be Steph Commonwealth, etc. or 446, and this was abolished by Statute 3 and 4, WN 4, C 105, and 33 and 34, Vict C 23. Now keep in mind it ends with this, and the corruption of blood is unknown in America. Reference Constitution, United States, Article 3, subsection 3. Now, over the years, I've always supported Noble Drew Ali's position on telling the Moors who become conscious of the real history of the Aboriginal people to enforce the Constitution. And as you all know, and it's not an unknown fact, that you have many people that came into the Moorish movement pretending to support the uplifting of our fallen people and the enforcement of the treaties which are founded or enforced via Article 3 of that Constitution, etc. And while they themselves had nationality cards, they pretended to be in support of that until they started seeing people become really conscious and start commanding the enforcement of the Constitution, and then they showed their real colors, that they were actually against the Constitution and against Noble Drew Ali's principle of the restoration of the lost estate. However, I will inform you this, and keep this in mind, you all. While you have had traitors among us, and traitors among even hybrid Europeans who are obligated to that Constitution and to enforce that treaty, etc., the treaties via Article 3 and also Article 6. And this is why over the years I've always presented to the Moors arguments consistently to enforce Article 3 and Article 6 in particular, for they are put in place to secure your rights relative to anyone who claims to be government. And this is where your quo warranto issues would come in, your averments of jurisdictions, etc., as a standard protocol in all your relations with, i.e., persons claiming to be government. Logically, and in fact, those whole areas and the knowledge contained or necessary for securing the people's rights in those areas have been both abridged and have not been taught, which is why when we get into this subject matter of constitutional enforcement, it creates so much controversy with people who you would think would be in support of securing the rights of the Aboriginal people, because many of them have done a pretty good job of pretending to be helping the people when actually they have been promoting the very frauds that have injured their own people, and particularly since they have recognized the institutions of the hybrid Europeans that North America had begun to collapse, because the people have begun to become more and more conscious of the frauds, and have been declaring their nationality and commanding the restoration of their birthright, particularly via the removal of the corruption of blood practices, etc., i.e. bills of attainder, etc. And this is why people who claim to be any kind of a nation state whatsoever among our people have been cleverly or less than honorably and conveniently never getting into this type of subject matter or this kind of conversation. But they'll use the dogmatic religious systems to pacify the people, to make the people think that that they have no power and that they have no rights, and that it is useless for them to be active in relationship to the restoration of their estates, for they have been overpowered by ancient powers that have been governing these people, who have been actually secretly governing the planet under, i.e., what is known as the dark priesthood, etc. And whether they are making reference to those from the off planet, etc., the major issue that they're presenting to the people is to surrender and to consent, implying that you have no power whatsoever, i.e., and I've always taught against that position. For humanity has much power, and one of the things that they don't want you to know is that you have been actually stagnated by the priesthood, which is why they always do things in secret, which is also why they've maintained the secret societies, which is also why they get very, very sensitive when you start talking about these issues, etc., particularly the enforcement of the Constitution for the United States, because there has a metaphysical side to that instrumentality and its origin. So most people, when they're looking at it, they'll look at that instrument on its face and think that they're looking at a timeline of the 1700s. However, those who know, or who are more in the spirit realm or in the higher dimensions, etc., recognize that that instrument is ancient, and it was actually put there for a trap, even before the hybrids came here. Keep that in mind too. And so when we tell you to enforce that Constitution, we're talking ancient, present, and future at the same time. Now, many of these people who have been pretending to help our people, and who have been associating with us in the name of helping our people, they want to present to you the idea that they're going to fix these institutions. I present to you already that all those institutions that they keep trying to reattach you to are not only dead and dying, and that they will not be revived, and that you will be commanded by nature to dig deep within yourselves, because those of you who are still in the physical form, and some of those of you who are not, but who are still here helping, know that you have been assigned, yes you have, to start cleaning this mess up, and you're going to have to rebuild on many fronts, Midgard. So don't get the idea that you have no powers, because you absolutely do. And don't get the idea that because some off-worlders have come here over periods of times and done things to you, that you are therefore powerless. You are not. And understand this. This is a reality. You know how if a bully or some idol gods or some demigods who are competing with each other play games with you and try to influence you, that you have no powers? If they had the powers that they have, absolute, without you having any powers whatsoever, why would they hide? No different than if someone has an invasion of ants in their back door at their house, as an example. Would they start disguising themselves as Happy the Clown and then start blowing horns and start doing all kind of trickery stuff, and then trying to get someone else to get some brooms and stuff to sweep the ants out? Or would they just go and start sweeping the ants out, not try to hide themselves? Well, let's put it this way. All of these competing idol gods that people have been preoccupied with over these millennia in relationship to humanity on this planet and in relationship to the Aboriginal peoples of the planet, who they've been convincing that you have no powers, etc., they have been hiding themselves because they are afraid that as more you know of them, the more you come out from under that false matrix that they've been putting on humanity for this last millennia. That's the truth.
It's a lot like the Wizard of Oz when
absolutely
when Toto pulls the curtain.
Absolutely. So when you're looking at as the Oz as an example, right? What you're really looking at is a demonstration of the ancient lizard people they talked about, and then you're looking at the assigned kingship that they talk about. Then you look at all the hybrid Europeans going into Asia, Africa, South America, North America, stealing the gold and the jewels, etc., and destroying the culture and covering up. All of this is corruption of blood. If their powers were just immutable, absolute, they wouldn't hide, would they?
No.
In other words, like this. If someone, we have a problem in these days, because of the transfer or the collapsing of different agencies operating, particularly at Northgate. You'll see a lot more people say ordering things, what they say online, and things coming to people's houses through the mail. And then that created another industry of thievery, where both people who deliver as well as people who they call porch bandits, people who are stealing packages. Now, if someone comes to your door to steal packages and you're standing there at your door, would you hide yourself and then go call someone else to call someone else to hide something and to get a bullhorn down the other end of the corner and say, "Stop, thief"? Or would you just tell them, leave, etc., without necessarily fear, etc.? And I say that as an example relative to the idol gods and the demigods that have been presenting to humanity for all these millennia under all these fear tactics, with no demonstration of evidence, etc., or authority, etc., and people have guided their lives accordingly, clearly to their detriment. And I always say that anyone that really has authority or power does not hide, and it's not necessary for them to be in secret, because if they're operating in honor and in integrity, they're open and they're transparent. When they are hiding in the dark, it is intended evil, and it is intended fraud, and it is intended deception, and it is intended that they don't want you to see them for what they really are. This is why a couple of years ago when we did classes here at the House of Reawakening Minds, and we had a conversation, and I said, all masks are off. That's what I was making reference to. And so what you'll see now is all of the institutions that the people have been depending on, they can't even hide their corruption anymore. And many of the things that we talked to you about over the years at the House of Reawakening Minds, you will see they have manifested, even though you have a lot of people who have hung around us and have attached themselves to us, most of them you don't see anymore, etc., who have been actually secretly and behind the scenes trying to undermine the consciousness of being presented to the people, because they have different connections with these agencies and institutions and have been beneficiaries of the fraud, and they don't want to see Rome's agencies go down because they had their little jobs and their little backdoor 501c3 kickback agreements and payoffs with these people, and so they have no real loyalty to the uplifting of fallen humanity when it becomes when it starts hurting their pockets. Meaning that they'll stand for principles until they can't keep their hands in these people's pockets. Then you'll see them change their colors, and that's what I was talking about a couple years ago when I talked about all masks are off. I was actually making reference to people who have been around us for quite some time, because they thought that we didn't see them. But at the same time, ultimately, everything will come for the good of humanity anyway. And I'll tell you this too. And so you all that are listening here tonight, present or challenge what I'm getting ready to say, and see, compare to the people who have been trying to counter us on many levels, no matter what walk of life they come from, and then see if what I'm saying to you does not manifest. All of the institutions that you have believed in, that deals with your bank systems, which belongs to the Popes of Rome, that deals with the IRS, that belongs to the Popes of Rome, which we did a class here and we showed you a general writ or challenge of their jurisdiction and a counter move or a reversion of a state, etc., and why we've always promoted that, and why we've always promoted an aberrament of jurisdiction, quo warrantos, etc., etc. All of those institutions are collapsing, and what's going to happen, although they've been covering it up, it's going to be undeniable to even the naysayers who have been trolling over the years, thinking that they were going to undermine what we were presenting as if it was merely our opinion. It is not. You're dealing with simply cause and effect and divine law, like it or not, etc. So you can get mad at messengers all you want to, matters not, because all the institutions and those who have been paying many of you off, who have been compromised around us, etc., you're not going to be able to make your extractions or your drafts as you have been, because your cards are going to stop working, which I've been telling you for the last 10 years. They're going to be stealing your accounts, which I've been telling you for the last 20 years, etc. And those of you who have not, started changing what you vest your energy in, etc., are going to be sorely disappointed, because you'll be the easiest croppings for them. And if you think they're not going to sacrifice you, you got another thought coming. We're not, a lot of times over the years when we have presented to people certain platforms to do, which includes a consular court venue enforcement, which is Article 3, Section 1, 2, and 3 of the Constitution, etc., we already knew that we're talking metaphysically from a period of time or timeline that by millennia supersedes even the existence of these people that we're discussing right now, including the bodies that we're in right now, and actually is presentment actually for the future, because it was a trap for them to get humanity to start fixing their problem. And so while you see a lot of these people say, oh, Taj, you guys don't know what he's talking about, enforcing that Constitution, and blah, 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 let's hear what I'm getting ready to tell you. The nations of the earth of Midgard are going to adopt those honesty principles that were adopted for the Constitution of the United States in all of their governments in order to survive this next transitory operation that's taking place as we speak, not later. So you don't have to wait too long. Prove me a liar. Corruption of blood. And so these people have been stealing our birthright, and they've been living off our virtues, and they take the position that they had this thing so covered that there would be no recovery. And as we told you 4 or 5 years ago, that the nations of the earth would stop trading with them, you're experiencing that. We told you that the governing body are de facto, you're experiencing that. We told you that they're frauds, you're experiencing that. We told you that they're going to steal your accounts, you're experiencing that. We told you you're not going to get any remedy in the state's courts because they are incompetent and de facto, you're experiencing that. I told you, just like Drew Ali said to you, he's going to make the European tell you the truth, you're experiencing that. And then you're going to be experiencing, pay attention to the details, what I'm saying to you. Watch as the nations of the earth start openly and publicly letting it be known that they have adopted the Republic principles that are underpinning the Constitution for the United States on a universal scale. And many of them have been doing it secretly and are going to be becoming more and more open. We're not trying to fix those institutions, although we've been addressing them because we know they're going to be dissolved. And so the appeal to you is to go deep into the heart of truth within yourself, into the honor of yourself, and particularly those of you who have any intention for good, for humanity, and for the planet whatsoever, to stand on those truths. It doesn't matter whether you claim to be Muslim, Christian, Jew, Confucius, etc. The fundamental principles of moral and ethical right are one and the same, and those who do not enforce those principles will simply reap what they sow. And those who have been in opposition and secretly thinking that they were going to undermine what we were doing, let us say this, on the dimension levels, the work is already done anyway, so you already lost. So you can have these games that you want to play with yourself, thinking that you've defeated anyone that stands for anything moral, right, or ethical, or constitutional, and you'll just simply expose yourself. We're not arguing with you. Over the years, many people ask me, why don't you, this guy said this, and this guy said that, and they said that you're telling that terrible stuff to people, and you're getting people in trouble. You understand? Freedom is not free. That's number one. And much of the problems and much of the stress that the people are going through from a metaphysical point of view, or a metaphysical cause and effect issue, is actually for them to be their own test of worthiness, for the meek will inherit the earth. And so from the position of the corruptors, they think that they have stolen the lands and the wealth of the people, and that they're going to sit back and enjoy it. Well, they're not. Corruption of blood is what the conversation is. Is there any questions, Dr. T?
Yeah, there was one question or one comment that says thank you because he said many are saying that the Constitution belongs to the hybrids. I know I saw it. I'm not sure what
I can't understand what you're saying.
Oh, no, or saying that the Constitution that you're saying to enforce belongs to the hybrids.
It does not belong to the hybrid. It is given to him. Now, read as an example, Article 6 of that Constitution, right? It says all debts and contracts entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be binding against the United States. Do they understand language? Does that sound like they did it for themselves? Or does that sound like an obligation placed before them?
That they have not kept.
Exactly. Not only that, has the practice been that they have been upholding that Constitution, or did they set up a demon platform known as the U.S. democracy and have been robbing the people, injuring the people, creating private POW camps, implying that they were government prisons, etc., when they was really operating to destroy the families of the Aboriginal people? Is anything that they have done in those areas constitutional? Do you see them going around talking about the Great Republic and the treaties and the ordinance of 1787, setting forth a republican form of government for all agreed parties of the states? Do you see them talking like that? Do you hear them talking like that? Oh, you hear conscious Moors talking like that. You don't hear the hybrid Europeans talking like that, because what? They have, that is contrary to their what? Unum sanctum operations, isn't it? If they set it forth for themselves, wouldn't they be honoring it? You know, I think what, and again, like I said to you before, Dr. G, many of the people on our side of the bloodline who have been pretending to be working to help uplift fallen humanity, I ain't gonna argue with them because they're going to be exposed forthrightly. Not because I said so. I just want you all to recognize what I've said tonight, and then keep points and notice and live it. You're not going to go to the next generation with this. I've told you what you're living right now. And you will be experiencing it in succession. That's a fact. And some of the same people who have been helping the hybrid Europeans live off your virtues are going to be exposed for the traitors that they are and have been. And many of them are going to try to turn around and pretend that they meant something different. No, they meant exactly what they've been doing. They just thought they were going to get away with it. That's all. In other words, you know the idea of people standing in two camps, not unlike the great history surrounding plaintiff in error in the Dred Scott case. Can't serve two masters and claim liberties. People need to even look at the Dred Scott case again, because the plaintiff in error is on the principle is that he is of Asiatic African descent. He could not be a U.S. corporate citizen. However, he could be secured under the rights that already exist by treaty and constitution enforced upon the governing body, i.e., via their constitution. This is why he's plaintiff in error. He's trying to be a Negro colored U.S. citizen. Under that venue, you can only be stock, because the treaties between the Moroccan Empire and Britain, which is the United States Corporation Company, and United States Corporation Company operations have been from the beginning. And for those of you who know a little bit more about the truth of that Constitution and why they have never honored it, is because they have never been legitimately under the governing operations, and they have deceived the people from the beginning, because they really never won the Revolutionary War against Britain. What they did is held it in secret. And I suggest that some of you look up General Burke, and I won't go any further on that for tonight. That could be another discussion. And this is why over the years we've already told you that George Washington converted the Moorish Bonnevilles and estates into the states. They've been pretending from the door to be a constitutional platform, but they have never honored it. The United States Corporation Company has always been and still is British colony operated from Fleet Street, England, under the Bar Association of the Sadducees and Pharisees, known as the Bar Association, and it has never been a legitimate nation state. And this is a part of what is talked about today. You remember we heard today, Dr. G, when they was talking about Delaware had never been a state?
Yes.
That
was Biden
well, it's kind
saying.
of attached to what I just now said. But then that goes for the rest of them too. That was, so the Delaware Territory Corporation was implied as being the first state, wasn't it?
That's our motto here.
This is why you'll see all of the corporations, 90% of all corporations under United States Corporation Company registered in Austria operating are also registered, i.e. jurisdictionally at Delaware. Fact. And then a few in Nevada. Why? What I just told you. So you're going to have a lot of geography and a lot of history that you're going to learn in the coming moons. Not too far, because as these institutions that you've trusted collapse, and they're still going to be taking all your stuff, a lot of stuff you're going to be forced to learn, even though many of you haven't been hearing us. We only gave you some of this information so you could start protecting yourselves. And also so that some of you who have any honor can do some things to try to help your families survive just transitory operations that would be going on. This is again why those who really know and knew what was really going on a spiritual level never really vested themselves deeply into any of the social, economic, and political operations there, because they know it's transitory. And those of you who think that you've settled into some kind of secured position operating at North America, i.e. at the North Gate, while Rome rules and have been ruling, you've got another thought coming. It will never happen. The deal of it is all of these institutions must be dismantled, and they are being dismantled. And many of you who have been supporting them are going to be glad after the fact, even though you're wailing right now. This stuff is going down, and I got investment in here, and in my 401k. No, it's a 409k, which I've been telling you for 20 years. Get your stuff out of there. And those who listen benefited, those who didn't, well, that's your choice. You have a right. You have a right to reap what you sow. And those who have been in dishonor, you're going to be shown for the dishonor that you have always been. And we got to work these things out. However, I'm not presenting I told you so. I don't play that game. However, I told you so. And because things are happening and they will be accelerating, and we can have some more of this conversation in the future, in the near future, not long future, because they're going to be taking all your stuff just like I told you they were, because they're going to try to save themselves. And in order to save themselves, they're going to sacrifice you. And those of you who tie yourself to them, going down with Rome. That's a fact. And those of you who have any honor left, trust that you will get together with other people of honor and integrity and stand on principles and start using your divine mind, your sovereign divine mind, to start reconstructing platforms and institutions that have moral and ethical principles for both the political and economic salvation of your own people and for others. For this issue before us, this birthright issue, is a birthright issue for humanity, not just the Moors of America. Corruption of blood is the conversation. Heritability is the conversation. The rich that we have been presenting to you over the years, and the positions that we've taken even over the last 25, 30 years for the reinforcement or the reactivation of the consular court in spite of the opposition of hybrid Europeans and great opposition among Moors Americans, i.e., who have been pretending that they were in support of the uplifting program that Noble Drew Ali presented to the Moors of North America, are exposed for who they really are. Because the reality is, those of you who are listening right now, mark this down, Article 3, Section 1, 2, 3, subsection 1, 2, 3, and you will see that the legitimate courts under the Constitution are ambassadors, diplomats, and consuls. And so it becomes apparent that those who are against diversity, which is mean the recognition of nationality, would be against the enforcement of that Constitution. Thus, they would contend that the Constitution has nothing to do with you when it has everything to do with you. And the problems that you've been having politically, socially, and economically is because they've had you under a false jurisdiction, a de facto jurisdiction, and that Constitution is their obligations in treaty, etc., to enforce that Constitution and to immediately change venue or correct venue whenever there was controversy between any Moor and i.e. U.S. citizen. Now that's a fact. The reference books that I showed you before, civic relations, and this is why the Green Book.
This one?
Yeah. And this is again relative to corruption of blood, why I over the years while there's many subject matters that we can get into, I always knew, and I know now, that unless you fix certain root issues that have created the problems that we deal with, etc., that you're not going to get rid of the symptoms unless you get rid of the root of the problem. And so while many people wanted me to divert into spurious arguments about multiple levels of information that I have indeed, and that I've written about indeed, you know that over the years my focus has been civic relations, etc., because I already knew that most of your economic and social and political problems that you have been suffering is why you have been making up all of these 3 and 4 letter pseudo organizations to address rights, whether you're dealing with PPPPC, NAACP, colored people's this and colored people that, not even know that colored people means artificial person, and you've been spending fortunes with these people who in secret knew that they were misleading you. And at the same time, that's why you don't see none of them, i.e. really telling you the truth of what Noble Drew Ali brought to the Moors of North America, or they deliberately distort it, because they themselves have been compromised. Because when you find out what's really been going here, not only is them hybrid Europeans going to be out the door, so is a lot of these people that you've trusted. And this is again why I did that. And many of you who know that I deliberately published these books out of sequence, because I already knew there was traitors around us. And because people, some people just don't respect when you see. They think that you're talking trash. But you don't have to prove anything to them. You can prove it. I'll prove it what I've said in the past. You're experiencing it, so I don't have to prove anything. And I don't spend my time trying to prove anything. I just do what I got to do and keep it moving and eat my peanut butter sandwiches. Now, this is the law of the land. Article 6. And pay attention to these details and think corruption of blood. And also think about them persons who claim to be helping our people, who keep telling you that that Constitution has nothing to do with you. Article 6 of the Constitution for the United States of America. All debts contracted and engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be as valid against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or the laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. The senators and representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification of any office or public trust under the United States. So your religious beliefs have not anything to do with it. These people are obligated, and those obligations exist before the adoption of the Constitution. They didn't create it, they adopted it. Is an adopted child your child? Is an adopted law your law? Or do you take favor to something that is good and you take it unto yourself because it is well for you? However, while they adopted it, they never honored it. That's why you don't never see them tell you that the treaties are the supreme law of the land. That's why they don't honor the Constitution. Now, being Moorish Americans and the heirs of the land and the true Americans, it is the duty and the obligations of the nationals and of the citizens to enforce that Constitution and the treaties. And it is definitively the obligations of all judicial officers, senators, representatives, etc., to enforce that Constitution, which includes the treaty, etc., and any laws of any state that they make, design, imply, signify, try to make, etc., have no standing whatsoever in contradiction to the Constitution and the enforcement of the contracts and agreements made before the adoption of that Constitution. It stands as the supreme law of the land against the United States. They are bound. Attention. Title, United States Code of Law, Title 22. Write that down, you all. Foreign Relations and Intercourse. Write that down, you all. Page 954. Chapter 2. Consular Courts. Section 141. Judicial authority generally to carry into full effect the provisions of the treaties of the United States with certain foreign countries, the ministers and consuls of the United States in China, Siam, Turkey, Morocco, Muscat, Abyssinia, Persia, and the territories formerly a part of the former Ottoman Empire, including Egypt, duly appointed to reside therein, shall, in addition to other powers and duties imposed upon them, respectively, by provisions of such treaties, respectively, be invested with the judicial authority described in this chapter, which shall appertain to the office of minister and consul, and be a part of the duties belonging thereto, wherein and so far as the same is allowed by treaty, and in accordance with the usages of the countries in their intercourse with the Franks or other foreign Christian nations. So as you see, that instrument is international, is an instrument of diversity. Therefore, Noble Drawley say that instrument was created for what? All free national beings. And since that Constitution has never been changed, there's been no Constitutional Convention. Read the Divine Warning by the Prophet for the Nations, and you'll see why I've been expressing that over these years. And you'll also recognize the traitors who are among you. It's not my opinion. That's the law of the land. Now, so don't say Taji's wrong. Why don't you say that Constitution is wrong and the government is wrong? And if it is, why is it that they, i.e., who claim to be Moorish Americans, etc., in whatever organizations they may be, whatever political alliances they may have, why are they against it? Unless they are against the enforcement of the nationality of the Moorish Americans. And thus, they're really in support of the Christian black codes, etc., which have been corrupting the blood, i.e., making people of Asiatic African descent non-heritable, which is why they set up the nom de guerre system, which you know as the branding system. Why? It's a corruption of blood.
When you say Asiatic African, are you still now somehow attaching that to the land now known as Africa as opposed
Yes. All, because remember, all of the land, and this is what people need to know. All of the land areas we refer to as Asia. We have specific names, or what you call attributes, for jurisdictional purposes of the different continental areas. And all of your major continental areas will all start with the letter A. Antarctica, Africa, America, Asia, etc. These Asiatics, in general, are referred to Asiatics. Africa's territorial name. But in fact, the people are Asiatics.
I think that's where people...
I know where the people confuse.
The confusion may come in because...
they're thinking geographical from the that's why I say study geography, because the people...
Let me finish my question. The people on the so-called continent known as Africa don't consider themselves largely to be Moors. They may be Ugandan or...
you're talking political nationalities.
Right. So where is, if there is a line to be drawn, where is it drawn?
So you're talking, see, this is the people, and this is back to geography. People need to know the distinction between continent and nation state. As an example, in current platform of Mexum East, i.e., which is known as Africa today, you have roughly 54 different nation states, and they will refer to them themselves by their nation states.
Which
now
Congolese or whatever.
Yes.
So
the
over
here,
So right here on Mexum, where we are, Turtle Island, whatever you want to call it, before the Reconstruction, what and many would call themselves different things, which you told me, like Choctaw men, Choctaw people.
Like Anayanwea, example. Much of my family, probably many of these people around here's family, Anayanwea. Now, also they write that in history as Cherokee, but that's not Cherokee. It's Anayanwea.
Okay,
and then you'll have like some of the names have stuck because you have here at North America, right? At the North Gate, we had what you call roughly a little over 500 families, or what you call 500. They would say nations.
Okay.
But keep in mind, nation is extended family.
Okay.
But yet the extended family is still Canaanite, Moabite.
Okay.
Or Asiatic African. So when you're talking collectively, it's sort of like even you'll see reflected in political construct. Like you'll see geographical political construct as an example. Say North America, right? North America, when you're talking about the northern part of America, because America actually goes from north to south, and keep in mind that's one continent. Don't get it confused. So when we say the Americas, people think North America and South America geographically separate. They're not separate. It's one continent. And I think because of the politics of the Panama Canal coming through that isthmus, people look at North America and South America as separate geography as far as continental. They're not. North America, Central America, South America is one continent, i.e. Mexum. We refer to it geographically as Northwest Africa, Central Africa, and Southwest Africa, etc. In modern times, we refer to it as North America, Central America, South America, and in general, we refer to it as Old Mexum or Olmec.
Right.
That would be all the whole thing. When you say Olmec, it ain't no Indian. It's the whole area. The whole area. That would include whether you're talking about the Powhatan or the Anasazi, etc., etc., etc. These are political confederations. Just like they'll say like the Anasazi Confederation, right? They'll say Iroquois, but those who know it's Anasazi. So if you don't know Anasazi is Iroquois, you start giving credibility to Iroquois and ignoring Anasazi.
And I get that. This is the point I want to make.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of, and I don't even really want to get into it, but there's a lot of controversy and
The controversy is always going to be there.
No, I mean
Yeah.
specific
Yeah.
controversy in the chat. I've had let me see.
Go ahead.
I've had Rod Hayes on a couple of times,
Mhm.
and Rod's position.
Good brother.
Yeah, he's a good brother, but they're calling him an agent and all that because they say on some place he says something about F nationality. His thing is not against that. He doesn't. Well, from my conversations with him, it's one thing. That's why I'm getting clarity to you. We are called by these, what did you call them, family names, or what are they called? What did you say?
You would refer to them as tribal. They're
Tribal
actually
names.
nations.
He's
They're
more into
actually
a tribal.
nations.
He's more into that nation stuff than he is into the overarching.
yeah,
and so my question to you is, where does the name Moor as our nationality for all of us, when did that come in? Was that always that, or at some point you said at the beginning of the outset you said that the last thing
lawful name of these people. So
who
when
gave
you're
it
dealing,
to us?
No, it's not somebody gave it to us. It's ourselves.
But
yeah.
when did we call when did we do that? That's what I'm just saying. I'm just asking.
You're dealing mostly from Olmec, from Central Africa, during the period of Hammurabi Bey, which is used as the political platforms and the economic systems that are used in most of your modern era that they will call Greek and on up, blah blah, really Hammurabi. All right. Now when you're dealing with Aunt Hagar, whose grave they have in Mecca, she ruled actually Central Africa, Central America. Hammurabi come from under her, and from the ancient Moabite comes the Moorish nation. The Moorish nation is descended actually from the ancient Moabite. Now you're getting into what they call the matriarchal rule. And this is why it's important for people to really know a lot of the real origin of the history of the Yucatan, and also why it is not talked about much as archaeologically among the people, because they want to keep the people separated. Keep this in mind, the psychology of the people is separation, right? Do your research and you'll find that the term Indians of the West was projected upon most of the Arawak and the Carib tribes of Moors in the south, or Americana, i.e. the islands, etc. And this would be the area of Trinidad, Tobago, Borican, etc. And they would refer to those tribes as Indians, etc. And over time, that terminology was pushed even to the north, but it was first applied to the islands of the Bantu and the Mandinka and Phoenicia tribes, etc., of the south, etc. But all of them can be traced back to Bantu, Mandinka, and Phoenicians, etc. And when you do research, you'll find that all the ancient Americans are, as a cover, they'll say Phoenicians. And that's the truth. And for those of you who want to do a little bit more research, look into literature by George Massey as a point of view. Look into the literature by what's his name? The ancient and modern Britons. Look into the research and works of Joel A. Rogers, etc. But it's no secret, never been a secret. And then when you look at the war records and you look at all the treaties, etc. This is why you'll see when they talk about the oldest running treaties in the world, as far as the political arena is concerned, is the treaties with the Moors and Britain. And this is why so much reference is made to the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the Moroccan Empire and the United States, etc., which is a British colony, etc., operating at Morocco. This is why you'll see in the references in the Secretary of State that we'll reference every once in a while with Secretary Roots. And he even talks about how the Moors lost their nationality. And that's basically by being naturalized, i.e. that's the 14th Amendment person that everybody keeps talking about, the straw that exists now, which is a corruption of blood, etc. This stuff is not secret, etc. And so the deal of it is, even when they're using the term Indian tribes, etc., that can be quickly dismissed, because the fact of the matter is, even what they call India in Northern Asia is in India. That's Sindh, etc. And India is actually a corruption of Hindi or Hindu, etc. And there's no such thing as Indian, And so our people are taking what you would say the political social engineering operations of the hybrid Europeans that they practice at the North Gate, etc., with the so-called, if you claim to be Indian, you can claim sovereignty, and they're adopting that as if it's ancient, and it absolutely is not. You don't even need to even argue that. That is dismissible on its face immediately, almost immediately. And the other interesting thing is how you'll see people will tell you who you're not, but they can't tell you who you are. It's like, it's ridiculous. It's like, it's sort of like many people who get caught up in the fake sovereignty of claiming to be Indian, thinking which is why they gave them the reservations, thinking stop being who you are, and we'll separate from your other people. And many of them are referred to in the history as Shemnites, etc., who and I'll tell you truthfully, what's the brother that played in the movie 300? He died a few years ago, and he was the chief of the Navajo tribes in the West, and we used to talk regularly. One of the things that they started, this is why they started among them tribes of the Shemnites, started dismissing all those treaties, because they know they weren't being honored and they know they weren't valid. And he used to talk to me regularly that many of them are starting to claim their Moorish heritage. They already know the overall that they are descendants of the ancient Moabites. Not just that, myself and Sabir Bey, which many of you listened to many of his shows over the years, etc. And there's other people that will back it up. At the International House on Chestnut Street, as a matter of fact, in Philadelphia, roughly around, I forget how many years ago, had to be around maybe 14 years ago or so, like that. They had programs going on for children in the Philadelphia school districts, doing research on their schools and the territories, and the names of the schools, the people whose names are applied to schools, and some of the history. And one of the things they had on the program there, and it was like a theater actually set up, and one of the things that was, you had the different Mexican territories and tribes who were in their traditional dress, etc., and who did a show at International House. And you can do the research and double check. And they brought out old pictures, old paintings. They said, we saved a lot of the art so that the Europeans couldn't destroy them. And they're old pictures. And they say, these are our forefathers, the Moors. Mexicans. Now that's the fact. But it's no big deal. Those who know, and those who don't. And based on, many people take their position from reconstructed history. And as we learn, a lot of the things that we thought are going to be dismissed. And so my position is, I hold support for anyone who's trying to uplift our people and get the restoration of the lost estate of these Asiatics. And I don't fall for the game of competing with people that everybody got to agree with everything I say. No, I already know the deal.
That's a
9 times out of 10, if these people do any research, you'll find that most of us is family anyhow, even though we're from different tribes. The idea of the tribal nation states are political designations. They're not bloodline designations. And one of the things that I see that's regularly a problem with the people at the North Gate, or particularly here in North America, is that they confuse political jurisdiction names, many of which didn't exist 150 years ago, as their bloodline identity, distinguished from pedigree. The pedigree of these people are Moabite. Moabite's an ancient name for Moors. Moors or Al-Moroccans, which means descendants of Moroccans. American is just corruption of Al-Moroccan, which means Al means descendant from, Moroccan means Moabite, etc. Americans and Moor. As a matter of fact, when people say Moorish American, it's almost an oxymoron for people who really understand the language, but it is necessary for developing the people politically. So when you really study what Noble Drew Ali did, he reestablished a political platform that our people could develop or operate from legitimately and lawfully from their rightful pedigree for heirship purposes to counter the corruption of blood.
So wouldn't a Moroccan be a better...
Sure, you can say Moroccan, which they will, like, you'll see...
Somebody had in the comment that actually that was in the...
You'll see Moroccans, as a matter of fact, one of the things, you know, because years ago when I was... when I helped establish the school at that we held at in Harlem, a couple of Palestinians visited us, and I also had some people visit from Ecuador with a card from the ambassador of Ecuador who sent a message to me. It was two men and a woman from Palestine. And they came to New York to the class, etc. And they know and they acknowledge that we're Moors. But Moors is a general contemporary term. It's contemporary. That's not denied. It is contemporary. But we're Moroccans of America. But the distinction of Moorish American is a political distinction that must be understood. Pedigree is Moabite. Never denied. I think because people don't look at the politics of things, that they mix, that they don't know how to make discernment between the contemporary political constructs. Just like, for instance, as the Europeans call us Indians of the West, and they'll say West Indians or West Indies, and our people start adopting that as an identity. It's not their identity. That's a political designation put on us by hybrid Europeans as a political designation to distinguish the Moabites or the Bantu in the Western Hemisphere, or the Maghreb, which means Morocco, the most extreme west, as for from Morocco of the East, or the Moroccan Empire. So when you're talking the empire, you would include Algiers, Tunis, etc., Sudan, Eritrea, etc., Egypt. All of that is part of the Moroccan Empire. This is why it's important. That's why I always remind people, when you see them referencing to the treaties, they're talking about all of these territories which were formerly part of the Moroccan Empire, i.e., Egypt, which is the capital dominion. That's what you see in chapter 47.
Egypt over here, Egypt over there.
Yes. So people need to understand the concept that Hikupta or Egypt only ruled on that side is incorrect. Also here, we have artifacts in the Grand Canyon and other areas that are older than some of the stuff that they've shown you in the museums. People's concept, there's a disconnect, which is purposeful, of our people being disconnected from the land. Keep in mind, part of the colonial operations with the Unum Sanctum is to claim the bodies, the souls, and the inheritances of all the people, and thus declare them dead. That's why Drew Ali said black, according to science, means dead. He's talking socially. He's not talking by etymological denotation, fact, or the morphology. He's talking about social engineering, and it is dealing with the corruption of blood, i.e. the descendancy issue, etc. Which is why he often said to the Moors, if you don't do anything else, declare your nationality. It is what he's making reference to, the corruption of blood. But people who don't do research, they get caught up. Put it this way. What do you see that happens with a lot of people? When they start doing research on the walk of humanity, you'll see them get caught up in Inky and all them, right? as if we have no right of power just because they did crap. And just because they are fighting among themselves about our estate, and start thinking that we're supposed to just submit or and consent, etc., because they are in secretly set other people in power, and they've done it for quite some time. However, if you recognize that they're always hidden themselves, etc., and all of your God systems have been pretty much based in that, but the nature of the God of self, i.e., the divine spark of life, or the monad. This is why I did the book, The Monad Master, and some of those things are in there. And also the wordship dispeller is to attack that area of the dogmata that has been used for mind control. I'm not unaware of that. My position has always been, if you're aware that beings, even off-planet beings, have been fighting over our estate for millennia, etc., does that mean that we're supposed to submit to that crap? Or do we have any integrity unto ourselves? My position has always been, if you know the history of the walk of man, what do you present as resolution for the problems that we're existing presently? And I always say, whenever someone presents any argument, the next thing I'm looking for is what do they bring for remedy? History is good. If it's not used for remedy, you're talking trash. You get the point?
Yeah, and I'm just going to say this to y'all listening, and y'all can get mad at me if you want, but I'm sitting here looking at the chat. One thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to try to start a war.
No, don't.
Listen, I'm not going to try to start a war between Grand Sheik and Brother Rod Hayes. They don't have a problem.
No, we together.
They don't have a problem, believe it or not. So y'all,
it ain't gonna be
please, those of you who are trying to get me to ask him certain things so he doesn't see the question, we're not doing that. Okay, that's the problem with us Moors. Some of us, like he says, look like us but are not us. You need to check yourself and find out which one you are, because let's not be divided. Grand Sheik is teaching about the corruption of blood. Let him speak on the subject matter that the topic that he selected. And if you all take your own platforms and y'all can have these other things where you want to tear down different Moors, go on, have at it. But let's not do it here. Okay? Let's respect what the subject matter is. I'm not angry. I'm just telling y'all, I'm ignoring what you put there because I'm not going to try to create your war for you. Okay? So let's move on. Thank you, Grand Sheik. Now let me see.
No, that's part of the corruption of blood.
Yeah,
that's part of the corruption of blood. See, this is the deal. Keep in mind, whenever anyone begins to try to bring any remedy to the people, you will immediately have what you would call interjectors. Not necessarily. Some are just a curious fact, if you get the point, or how do you say, researching and seeking truth, if you get the point. But many are there just to do what? To create the schism operations, which has been operative here, which is part of the corruption of blood operations, which I'm totally aware of. This is why you'll see. You know how I said to you, Dr. Naila, when people become conscious, when you get conscious, do not take things too personal.
Yes.
And don't get too attached.
Because you know one of the things you say, a lot of the things that we're doing today,
we're not going to
be doing. And you're majoring in minor stuff right now. And I'm not talking about you. But people are getting worked up over things that we will not even be dealing with going forward. You've been laying a foundation, and Rod says this too. Says, gives your props. He said, Grand Sheik's been saying this for 40, he says 50 years, and y'all still don't have it. He's not knocking you, and you're not knocking him. So the thing of it is, even still, now we are seeing coming to pass the things that since I've known you, and it hasn't been 40 years, it's been almost 12 years, but I've seen in this period of time the things that you have been saying from this platform and in our personal conversation. I see it. You know what I mean? And so, and it's nothing in you that wants to start a war with somebody who has a difference of opinion.
No, that's my brother. He is my brother. And I'm grateful. And see, because it's like this. If we don't bring these things up, we wouldn't have Rod Hayes.
Yeah.
You understand? The work that we have done has brought a lot of people out. A lot of people have come, a lot of people have gone. But the issue is that these subject matter must be placed upon the table before humanity to be addressed. And I've always said that much of what we've done yesterday, we will not be doing tomorrow.
Right.
But I know that from a metaphysical point of view, a lot of this is necessary brain exercise if you get the whole point. You know what I mean? Now, even as you know, as the time that we've talked, Dr. Naila,
Yes.
a lot of things that we have said to people over the years and that we have presented even when we first started coming down here, you'll see a lot of these hybrid Europeans are saying in different words and angles exactly what we've been saying. But 5, 6, 10 years ago, you didn't hear them.
No.
And guess what? As we go along, more and more is going to be cleared up. But it's necessary to save civilization. And this is my position. And you already know why I have always been consistent in this area. Everything that I've been doing over the years has been concerning the restoration of the state. We could talk about a lot of things.
Right.
You already know many different subjects that I know. Many
and things that you don't even talk about because you know that most of these,
it's a diversion.
And they want to hear one thing. They have tunnel vision, but we're broader than that. We're more inclusive than just the question of the nationality.
This is what I know. See, because the issue of nationality is diversity of citizenship. Now look at this. Now this is the point, Dr. Naila. Corruption of blood. At the heart of it, when we came on this, I told people to look up attainder, right? Mm-hmm. And hereditaminous, right?
And I put the definitions up.
Now, and then you're going to deal with heritability. All these people who have been arguing against nationality are going to find themselves subject to the 14th Amendment problems of the straw because in law they're not heritable. And I present these arguments over the years so that they can look at it for themselves. Don't accept what I'm saying. I always be telling people, prove me wrong. Don't go on emotion or what someone else said. Do the research. See, because this is the deal. You know, like when you look in the, and you know, whether you look dealing with the Quran or Ospi, Bhagavad Gita, the Gita, etc., Septuaginta, the Bible, etc., you will find within those scripts, here and there, the issue of honoring your mothers and your fathers, and your heritability or your inheritance of earth or land, etc. A corruption of blood in the political platform of sociology is someone who's basically, technically, and in fact in dishonor of their mothers and fathers. Are we clear? Which is one of the reasons why, from a political perspective, that the hybrid Europeans set up the nom de guerre system, which is also known as the straw man, the pseudonym system of estate transfers, or it's called as cheating, right? So when the people who are of ancient Canaanite Moabite descent accept the brand system, claim to be Negro, black, colored, Indian, they can do that because we've been called all those things. Being called that is not that that's your pedigree.
True.
Now, but in law, such persons in that state are not heritable. It's a corruption of blood, which is why I brought the subject matter up. It's not something that we haven't talked about. It is referencing because I already know, as I've been talking to you for the last few years when you started getting silver and stuff like that, mm-hmm. because I already know they're going to start taking your accounts,
yeah.
Right? And so you can save something or a little bit so you can survive the attack, because the attack is on. It's not coming, it's on.
We have enough of an attack from without in order for us to not want to be attacking from within.
This is my position, Dr. Naila. And if you notice over the years, you've seen me not arguing with these people.
Of course, I'm not.
Now,
arguing.
this is my position. No, this is my position. When I said a couple years ago, and I'm saying it now, all masks are off. Everybody that's of Canaanite Moabite blood will not inherit. But that's their right. That's their choice. I don't argue with them. Not just that, I don't want them next to my children anyway.
Right.
Because that is their spirit that sold us out in the first place. Spirit is breath.
Right.
But from an ethereal metaphysical position, we refer to the spirit as the unseen, or the less than concrete, or more of the abstract, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you hear us talking over the years when we present this information to people. Don't come into this knowledge playing victim, because you're not innocent. You've been victimized, yes, but you're not innocent. You're not totally innocent. I.e., meaning that what you find is that once you really begin to do research, you'll find that, and this is fact, the Moors are fighting among themselves, putting their tribal interest above the ultimate nation interest. Look at tribal no different than you look at, say, Wilmington, Delaware, Philadelphia, Camden. These are political designations. They don't separate you as a people. When you make the political designation superior to your pedigree, you lose your estate. And our people some of them have not recognized that. And so they're trying to prove that Mohican distinguished from Mohawk. They're all Moors. Powhatan, as a tribe, it's a confederation. But you don't argue with people because you already know the time is short.
Right.
The timelines are changing, right? And so when you see certain things that we talked about is only to give a heads up on people who have sincere intent to help humanity, knowing that many will not, because they're making choices. We're not mad at them making their choices, but we're not going to sit around arguing with them. Let them be where they are. Just like this. And this is why I say the things that I say. Wherever the people are in these last couple of years, basically, and pretty much where they are now, is where they're going to be. And that's not for me. I'm not making a judgment. I'm only saying what I see and what I saw. And so I'm not looking to save the world. So let's get that out there. It's why a lot of times when you see people appeal and even offer me goods and stuff like that, and you don't see me doing consultations and stuff like that. No, because the Spirit knows. Because those who are willing, you will know, because you will recognize it, because it will resonate in your DNA. And if it doesn't, it's because it ain't your time. Those who will ascend because they've done the shadow work. Others, some have chosen not to do their shadow work. But keep this in mind. This is really important for everybody. It's not a judgment. The principles of honor, of the reversing of the corruption of blood, is this. Every man, every woman, and even every child must confess their own and worship under their own vine and fig tree. What it implies is that even the children are not excused, because it is a spirit issue. And where there's no honor, you don't argue with them. They're making a choice. Some going to serve Rome, and some going to serve their ancestors. Those who believe in Rome will do those things to support the Roman platforms that have been ruling and corrupting the planet, and are threatened by anyone who brings any information that counters that. I already comprehend that. I'm not mad about that. We're clear. We also know that they will do what? Hide among each other, to deceive, to undermine, which is why all institutions or any organization that was ever put in place to help Asiatics was already infiltrated. As an example, Martin Luther King going against his 33 degrees, talking about the Great Seal. How was he talking about the Great Seal? In Masonry, the Great Seal is referred to as Muhammad's Mountain. The reference to the knowledge of it or the cognizance of it is called the mountaintop. When he recognized that he was no longer being useful to his overlords, to who he has fidelity to, he says, I'm not fearing any man. Tonight I'm not, He had already got the message that he was all going to be neutralized. And so did the people around him know that too, which is why they stood far away from him, looking like distance, like they're looking at a damn cloud somewhere. They already knew that he was being set up, etc. He said, tonight I'm not fearing any man. I've been allowed, I've been taken, etc. to the mountaintop. Get the point? And I've seen the promised land. I might not get there with you, but we as a people will make it to the promised land. He's talking about the north gate. In another statement, he said, in an apologetic way, as if he's brought his own people into a burning house. They're refugees in their own land. He'd been just basically better off revealing the Masonic secret and tell these people they're at the north gate, they're at their home. Dorothy, back to the Wizard of Oz. It is well known. So we know that some people among us are compromised and they don't want this information out. Because many institutions that they depend on their jobs or their kickbacks, this information will destroy these institutions. Knowledge is power. They don't want the common people to have this power because it's been sold to people in secret societies by degrees with death oaths not to reveal it. This is why when you start talking like this, everybody gets upset, because everybody is not unconscious of this. But they know that as the people get conscious, it will activate their DNA, their memories in it. They have powers that they don't know they have. And guess what? The people themselves are their savior. You are your savior. You are Jesus. Jesus means justice, and justice is here. Abdul.
And one of the things that people need to, and this is from, just my intuit about us, we need to get our heart chakra right. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't get it individually right, whatever you expect to get, and you talked about ascending,
you are creating your own destiny,
your own karma. Yeah. So if you got this argumentative, negative,
that's why I don't give it energy.
You can't.
Look. When you entertain it, you give them energy. Because you remember, it's ultimately vampirism. And just because they're among you, etc., don't get it confused that everybody has honorable intent. The issue before humanity is these two things, and you'll look at these characters and people. Service to others, distinguished from service to self. That's one of your tags for, if you want to vet people relative to the uplifting of fallen humanity. Service to self are usually narcissistic and egotistical and putting finance first before the mission. Those who are for the uplifting of fallen humanity is knowing that servants are worthy of their hire, however, will never take advantage of the weaknesses among our people, and will always do things based on principle, not on finance, and not on ego. Doesn't mean that one's better person than the other necessarily, but from a metaphysical, spiritual perspective, that's one of your easiest ways to vet anybody. I don't care what their position is.
There was a question about if you have any feelings with regard to the Buffalo massacre. I saw that since that's a current.
Say again?
The massacre that occurred of the 10 in Buffalo, where they were shot down in the grocery store.
Red flag. That's my opinion.
Not saying that it didn't.
Red flag.
Red flag. Okay.
Look at this way. In the background, as we're saying to you right now, and you notice I don't get into this much because I already know it's a play that's going on.
Right.
All right. Because the Khazarian news media is being dismantled at this time, and it's necessary for them to control the narrative, which has been necessary relative to their power structure. When certain things are done in the background that's not in the mainstream, that starts to dismantle, and you can look at things like, say, Elon Musk purchasing Twitter. Mm-hmm. other Truth Social and other media in the background being constructed. Things that are on certain people's laptops being exposed, and also things that took place in The Hague International Court in recent days that's not in the public venue. And I think if y'all do a little research, look what was happening at The Hague on that same day, and you'll start recognizing red flags.
Wow.
That's my opinion.
So it's true. I would say that they have some that have already been, they activate them when they want to
MK
do,
Ultra, we've been telling people that for years.
to go and do.
You already know the paperclip operations. Many of you study already know that. And many of you who've been studying also know that the so-called Second World War defeat of the Nazis was for the public, but was not the fact.
That's right.
Germany did not lose the Second World War.
They just came over here, didn't they?
No, not that they. Yes, but that's paperclip. And that's also your NASA. NASA is Nazi. And including the reinforcement of the banking system, including the setup where Roosevelt stole the gold from the people under the guise of law, including the operations of Richard Nixon in 1971 with the pegging of the private commercial instrument paper of the Jesuit order of the Federal Reserve pegged to oil, which is also being dismantled now, which is also why they dropped that building in New York and then said Muslims did it. Lied. They always do things in other people's names. None of this stuff is really secret for anybody who sees. People who can't see get caught up in those false narratives.
Yeah. So
anyway,
yeah, we just we appreciate.
I'm not like I said to you. Now see how we're diverted.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying.
Let me see if it's any.
I do. That's why you see me not entertain. I don't entertain dark spirits. I don't. Because remember, our appeal is for the people who have been deceptively held outside of this information, and who have been deceived, and who want to know the truth, who want to do better. We're not appealing to people who know and who want to play divide and conquer games for the hybrid Europeans. I don't even entertain it. So anyway, you all,
well,
we appreciate your support. We appreciate those who are willing to contribute to the uplifting of fallen humanity. No matter what organizations you belong to, the cause of uplifting humanity is everybody's job. I.e., as they always say, freedom is everybody's job. Anyway, thank you all for supporting the House of Reawakening Minds.
We also are looking at some dates for our next up close and personal. Either going to be in August. I think we're doing one in August and one in October, and then we're also going to be doing a holistic fair in July. So we'll be putting that information out because we know that many of you have been asking when you have an opportunity to see Grand Sheik in person and come to the House of Reawakening Minds. So we're just getting ready we're just solidifying the dates, and we will be putting that out just so you know, because we know that you all are want to get out, and we know that the issue of gas and so forth is a biggie.
Even that's red flag. That's part of it too. And let me add this to you. As I was saying to you earlier, the institutions that you've been depending on are collapsing, and they're going to do just what we told you, and they're going to be stealing everything from you. And look forward to go even higher and higher to a lot of you won't even be able to afford to run your conveyances on the street. Most of that is to wake the hardheads up who want to talk about tribal games instead of talking remedy. This is why we always talk remedy. You know, the deal of it is, if you notice something's wrong that's in the past, right? We look at it, we examine it, and what we should be doing is doing things that bring remedy now. Because if you're here to use your breath to talk about it, that means you still got to eat, sleep, and you make babies. Let's do it for the offspring.
And everybody missed you, Grand Sheik, but you had like a month off, and one of those weeks you were traveling. You went to Atlanta. I don't know if you want to give a shout out to the crew that came out, and then you had a week's vacation that was much needed. So we do, we know you need it. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to one myself. Yeah. But everybody wanted to know. Some called and says, "Everything all right?"
Yeah, we're all right.
Everything is all right.
Yeah.
Everything is everything.
If you're all right, that's all right. But the deal of it is, thank you for supporting the House of Reawakening Minds, and keep in mind the house is here to support the people at large. And we don't play the race game. We don't play the victim game. We deal with facts and we deal with remedies. And if we go into history of the walk of man, we do it for the point of getting people cognate, get you active for helping in the great missionary work of uplifting fallen humanity. So the House of Reawakening Minds exists, as you all know, to provide for the exploration and the practice of spirituality in an enlightened community. And we're dedicated to honoring the myriads of sacred pathways to the universal creator, right, the source.
It's not just one way.
Yes, we are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and more science. An awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, I'm pleased to thank Dr. Naila for maintaining the integrity of this platform, for bringing good people on, many of which you know, Rod, and the sister, what's it, the European sister that has been promoting the silver.
Oh, Chrissy. Yeah.
And understand, while we're working to restore the estate of the Moors, that don't mean we're against other people.
True.
Don't get it twisted. The issue is the uplifting of fallen humanity. Have a great night. Vadi Makem.
All right, thank you, y'all. We going out. Appreciate you. For those of you who don't know about chokeberry,
Dr. G inviting you to get your chokeberry plus today. It is that amazing berry, high in antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, antiviral properties. It supports and balances the blood pressure, the blood sugar, weight, and cholesterol. Yes, you can get a 2-month supply today by texting CB3L to 302-345-0500. That's CB3L to 302-345-0500. And get on the path to wellness today. You'll be glad you did.
The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say I'm reawakening minds. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store.